Welcome everyone. Let's walk through the Module 3 Week 4 workflow. So if you click the link to the repository, it will take you here. You definitely want to read through the instructions on the README carefully so that you understand everything that will be expected of you. It shows you the repository structure, a little bit of an overview, an external link to the data if you're curious. The Superstore sales data is extremely popular and well known. We'll see that we're going to fork and clone the repository, create and activate a virtual environment, install the requirements file, and then we're just going to follow along in the notebook. And then you are already doing this here, following along the tutorial. And in this tutorial, we'll build the entity relationship diagram together in Lucid Chart. And I'll kind of start you off on these prompts for queries and visuals, but you will complete those on your own. You'll also need to make sure you save the ARD we make into the appropriate place. And when you're done with everything, you will save, add, commit, and push changes to GitHub, and then submit the link in OpenClass to be graded. So to start off, we'll just go up here. First, you want to click Fork right here. Okay, and it'll just show you here. You can change the name or description if you want to. I'm going to create the fork. And now that you see you're in your fork, so I can see now this one belongs to me and not code you, you'll press this green code button again, copy that URL to your clipboard, and let's put it into our environment. I'm going to navigate to where I want to put it, and now I will just type git clone, and I will insert the link, press enter. We can see that it's there. Okay, so we can just go into it and then open the entire project in VS Code. And if you remember, you just press code space and a period, and it will just open all of the contents on the current working directory where you are, which is this workflow, which is the repo. We moved into it here. So press enter. All right, we can get rid of this welcome message. Let's go ahead, see that everything's here. Got a CSV file, our notebook here. So the instructions told us the first thing to do, and this is really good practice, I highly encourage you to do this, open a new terminal, and in your Git Bash terminal, you want to create and activate a virtual environment. So for me, because I'm on a Windows, I'll type python-m then venv, and I'm just telling it virtual environment, and I'm naming it venv or venv. If you are on a Mac or Linux, it looks just a little bit different, but those instructions are in the README. It takes a few seconds for the virtual environment to be created. And now that we've created it, we need to activate it. So we type in the word, if you're on a Windows, source. We go into that venv file, into the scripts, and activate. Again, this is slightly different if you're on a Mac, and those instructions are in the README. I believe you're using bin instead of scripts. We'll press enter here. And you see where this pops up? These parentheses above the prompting where it says the name, that tells you that it's active. Because that's above, I now know that I'm operating inside this virtual environment with this terminal. So if I install something now, I'm installing it inside the virtual environment. So what I can do is I can do pip install -r requirements.txt. So saying install and then read the contents of this requirements.txt file. It'll take a few minutes to go through all of the required libraries that we'll need for this notebook. And we have finished installing the requirements.txt file. We can go ahead and close this for now. And at the top of your notebook, so right up here, see where my mouse is here, right up here, where it says select kernel. Click on that, and then you'll select Python environments, and then choose that new virtual environment that you just made. Now that is what you are using. That's the kernel you're using. So we can go ahead and start this notebook. Let's start with our imports, all the things that we'll need. And if you're curious, this matplotlib ticker as mticker, this is a really great tool for if you want to do things like alter the scientific notation on a chart. So the tick marks and how they're labeled. I know with one of our previous assignments, a lot of people asked me how to do that, how to get rid of that, e to the 6 or 10 or, where it's really just scientific notation. So this is a really nice tool for that you'll see later. Let's go ahead and run this. The first thing we'll do is load and inspect the data. We already have this here for you, so you'll see that it has a special encoding. If you were to have just downloaded this and tried it without this encoding, you would have gotten an error message about the encoding, and then that will kind of lead you down a path to investigate what encoding you need. Luckily, this database is extremely popular, so it was easy to find that information, but just know that it's not that uncommon to need to specify encoding here. We'll run this and take a look at the first 5 rows. Excellent. You can see a lot of different things. And I'd like for you to ideally pause this video and try on your own first. Just do a little bit of exploratory data analysis on this data set. Play with it a bit, see if there's anything that needs to be cleaned or the data types need to be changed. Check for nulls, duplicates, all of that good stuff. Try doing that on your own first. And then when you're ready, unpause and come back. We had a few, just placeholders, things to get started here. If you look at the info, it can tell you how many rows, how many columns. So we know we're looking at close to 1,000 rows, 21 columns. That's a lot of columns. And we can also actually just see by here that there aren't any nulls. And we can see the data types here. One thing that sticks out is that our dates are objects and not date time data types. So that's one thing that we can change. And we also have a nice list of what the columns are if we want to start when we start thinking about what our entities might be. Just to double check, say if you didn't run this first or in your own exploratory path, you kind of went a different route, that's fine. We'll check for the sum of duplicates. There are no duplicates. There are no nulls. This is a very clean data set. I picked that because that's not really the focus of this tutorial, because you've already learned how to clean and wrangle data, but it's just a reminder that when you're starting with a big flat file, it might be very helpful to do a lot of the data cleaning and wrangling first in Python before you start to separate out all of the columns into different tables and create a database. So we'll go ahead, and this one, all this does is just changes these to date time data types. We can double check it here. Look at that. Perfect. So now if we wanted to do anything special with the date, we have a lot more tools available. When we're looking here, before we start thinking about our relational database, most of these are self-explanatory, but what is this? What is segment? I don't know. That's why we just went ahead and identified that here, right? So I'm going to look at the unique values of segment, and we can see that it's consumer, corporate, and home office. So just for clarity, before building our database, I'm renaming this to custom or category, and we just use the data frame.rename, change the columns. I did in place equals true, and then we can check to see, there it is. I wrote it this way because I'm actually going to change the naming pattern for my database. You don't have to do that. You could have just typed it capital letters with a space in between. That's fine too. This is your own preference. I just prefer when I'm writing a lot of SQL queries to not have to worry about capitalization, and I like snake case, but that is just a personal preference. Once again, see if on your own, pause the video and think about how you might design a relational database. And remember, the first thing you might want to look for are what are the entities? Entities are things like people, places, things that you can point out, things that have their own attributes. And also think about, for each table, that you want to minimize redundancy. You don't want something to show up, the same thing to show up multiple times. and a table. So go ahead and pause right now. Do your best. If you're totally confused, try a little bit, but don't waste too much time if you don't know how to start. And then restart the video when you're ready to build an ERD together. Okay, welcome back. I'm going to navigate to lucidchart.com. That is linked in your open class page. It looks like this here. If you've never used it before, you'll click sign up for free. And then what you can do is you can just sign up using any of these or actually type in an email. So if I press sign up with Google, I can select the account that I want. Continue. And it brings you here. A lot of pop-ups will happen the first time. I'm going to X out of this. You can learn how to do things. There's training things, there's community things. I'm going to X out of that for now. And we would like to make an entity relationship diagram. And we can see there's actually a quick link to it right here, database ER diagram. And it says crow's foot. That sounds great. Let's click on that. It's going to make you fill out a few things if it's the very first time you've used this. That's totally fine. Just put in whatever you want. We'll put a new user. We'll do it. Okay, we'll say maybe later. This would actually be a great time if you want to learn more about Lucid Chart. Just pause this video and go through those tutorials. That's totally fine. It's good to learn more about how to use this. This shows us a little bit here, the basics. It just starts with things. It says existing table, proposed table. Shows you how the fields and types, the entities are written. You can change the endpoints, right? So we don't want any of this though right now, so I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to do a split screen here. I've split my screen so that we can see the column names. Remembering, of course, that segment is now, what do we call it? Customer category. Maybe I'll actually just go ahead and rerun that so it's updated. The first thing that pops out right away is customers. We know that customers are an entity. We've seen a lot of customer tables. So what we'll do is we'll just drag one of these out. We'll name the top customers. And we have different fields. So what belongs to the customers? Customer ID. And again, I'm using this naming convention. You can name it exactly like this if you want. But in the code that comes below in this notebook, I have replaced the column names to match this new naming convention. Just a heads up, but you can change that if you want. There's customer name. For now, we're leaving the name as a whole. Very often you do see a separation between first name and last name, and that granularity is probably good practice, but in this case, I'm just going to leave the name. So we have customer name. We also have customer category. If you want to add more fields, it's over here on the right. You can add, let's see how many more are we going to need. We have locations will also belong to the customers. So country, city, state, postal code, and region are all in the customers. I'll go ahead and fill those in. And if the customers, say, had a phone number or an email address, of course, that would go in this table too. Right now, we don't have that. This seems to be it for customers. Another one that pops up right away, we have products, right? We have a product ID. Anything that has an ID should jump out at you as a primary key for its own table. So let's pull this out. Let's make this entity products. And of course, we have the product ID. What else do we see about products? Well, the product name. The categories will belong to the products, so category and subcategory. Excellent. So we have a products table. And what else do we have? Well, we have orders, right? So we have an order ID order date, ship mode. But then we also have information about the orders: sales, quantity, discount, profit. And when we see something like quantity, that might mean that it might go with something like a product ID. First, let's just think about an order itself. What would we need to know about an order? So we'll make the next entity orders. So each of these orders, of course, has that order ID. That's its primary key. It has a date. So every order ID has the date that it was placed. There should just be one date. So we'll say order date. There's a date that it was shipped. And there's the shipping mode. What else can we connect this with? Well, who places an order? A customer. An order has to be placed by a customer. It must. Otherwise, how could it be ordered? So let's add that in here. Let's do customer ID. So for our orders, we're looking at the ID, the customer ID, the person who ordered it, the date of the order, the date that it shipped, and the ship mode. And these should not repeat because there's just one order ID. There might be many order IDs per customer, but there's only one customer ID per order. And every order ID only has one order date, and ship mode. It can only be sent one time. So what about all the stuff we had done here? Profit, discount, quantity, sales. These are the things left over. We've done everything else inside. We can call that order details or order items, as we've seen before. I think in the code in this notebook that I gave you to start, I use order details, so we're gonna use that here. So what can go in here? We can put, well, we have to know what goes in the order, so it would be a product ID, and we have to see what the sales are, the quantity, the discount, and the profit. So let's add all that in. And you're wondering maybe, why are we not putting the customer ID in order details? Well, the order details are all about the order IDs. And the order ID itself, it also already saves this customer ID. So we have all of our things here, and you might be looking at this and thinking, wait a second, hold on. This is the same order ID, but two tables can't have the exact same primary key. That might cause some confusion. In order details, we're going to be using a composite key that matches the order ID and product ID. So it's saying for every order, take one of the products from the order, whatever product it is, and then tell us the sales, quantity, discount, and profit for that product ID for each order. So we'll double check here, and we have everything accounted for. All right, let's make the screen big again. Now we want to identify our keys. If we want to be able to look at the keys and here, one thing we can do is click on this, and then on the change shape over here, we can decide to choose key and field. You can even have key, field, and type if you wanted to put the data type in here. For now, we'll just do key and field, and we can manually change what this says. If we want this just to say primary key for PK. So for customer ID, of course, oh, this should be customers, not customer ID. My mistake there. For the customers table, customer ID is the primary key, and there are no other primary keys or foreign key things in here. You can see that, customer name, lots of customers could have the same name. Customer category, definitely, there are only 3 categories across the board, so we know that that won't be unique. Same with the location. Lots and lots of customers are going to live in any of these places. So customer ID is the only thing we can use for a primary key. Now for orders, I'm going to format it similarly, and I'll just kind of fast forward the video here. For the orders table, the order ID will be the primary key. that means that there is just one ID per order. No order has more than one ID, and every ID is just for one order, not for more than one. Customer ID is going to be the foreign key. That is what's going to link this orders table with this customers table. The foreign key here will link to the primary key here. And that means, we'll think about when we build the connections later what those look like. But just continuing down, of course, there could be lots of orders on each order, ship date, and ship mode, so those are not good candidates for keys. Let's move on and do the same thing for products. Under products, product ID, once again, is going to be our primary key. And last but not least, let's check out our order details. Much like before, all these things at the bottom, they are not unique to anything. Lots of orders can have the same profit, discount, quantity, and sales. The combination of order ID and product ID will be our primary key. It is a composite key. So let's first think about the connection between the customers and the orders table. We have customer ID here and customer ID here. Let's think about what we need. So for there to be a customer ID, there can only be one and only one customer. If we go up here, this is the endpoint. We can change it like this, right? One and only one customer for customer ID, all of this. But the customers themselves with these customer IDs, there could be customers that haven't placed any orders. There could be customers that haven't placed any orders, and there could be customers that have placed lots of orders. So we want this one. Oh. So we want to look at this one. We want 0 or many. So in the customers table, if the customer didn't exist, they wouldn't be in the table. There wouldn't be an ID for no customer, right? So we have one and only one customer per customers table, but each customer could have lots of orders or no orders. Now, let's think about orders and order details. All right, let's go ahead and we'll just connect these lines, this order ID here to the order ID here, because these are the same values. This is where they connect, even though this is a composite key. So every order ID here can only have one, and really only one, order. If there wasn't an order there, if it were 0, there wouldn't be order details in the first place. So when we're over here, we want one and only one. But for every order, the whole purpose of order details is so that you can have lots of them. But you may only have one. So when we go here and we'll click here, you can have one or many. Again, we wouldn't have 0, right? But we would have at least one if we have details on it. Oops. If we have details on it. But we could have lots, right? We could have lots of, they're really like line items of the order. There could be many, many lines, but at least one. And last but not least, let's take a look at products. And products is connected to order details. Put it over here. We'll take product ID and link it to product ID. So we know that in products, if it exists and has a product ID, it's one and only one. So that we know on the product side, it's one and only one. But for each product, it can be in lots of different order details. Lots of them. Maybe none of them. So there might be some products that weren't sold at all, and there might be products that are sold many, many times on different order details. So we can go ahead and change this side. Oops, wrong side. We can go ahead and change this side to 0 or many. Now you have it. It is a very simple entity relationship diagram. And you'll see things are pretty linked together. It's not, there's not a lot of foreign keys going on around here. You can make this look different if you want. Like you can click this top part and you can modify the color. So the fill color, you can make it, fill colors of the table, something different, right? Change it to whatever you want. You could select just the top and change just the top colors. And if you want to play around with that, you can. Otherwise, this is plenty good. And if you want to save it, you go up here, this little drop down, export, and you can choose how you want to export it. I'm going to export it as a PNG with just PNG. I think that's fine. It'll look just like this. It cropped it to content. That's totally fine. I'm going to press download. When it's done, you go up here in your file explorer, right? You see where it's downloaded at the top. It might look a little different if you're not on Windows. Click that folder, and you can move this to wherever you want it to be. You can do that using the terminal, or you can really just move it. You can copy it here. I can press copy, and then I can move into where my project directory is. So I'm realizing that when I added the images folder to GitHub for you guys to use this repo, that of course it didn't add to GitHub because it was empty. So go ahead and just make a new directory here. You can again do it on your terminal, or you could just do it right here. You can label it images and then go into that and paste your new diagram. Now when you go back to VS Code, it will be there. You have this new folder, and there it is. Make sure that you're saving everything. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here. And in the second part of this tutorial walkthrough, we'll go through how to create this database schema here. For instead of using the superstore.csv, we'll build the superstore database.